didn't put the microphone on. Is it here? I'll just stay close to the mic. So, I only met you yesterday. Find out how easy it is for me to embarrass myself. Ask Mitch when we're done. I'm sorry, I'll bring it up again. So we're talking about proving the resurrection of Jesus Christ, but you know it's impossible to prove a supernatural event. You know, I can prove to you, I'm going to talk about in a scientific method, I can prove to you that it's about a 10-pound bag of potatoes weighs 10 pounds by putting it on an accurate scale, and I can, that you can see it. And other things, I can prove to you the heart has 4 things, pipes going into it. I forget what you call it. X-ray, and I can show it to you. That's how do you prove an event that's supernatural? Happened once. It happened 2,000 years ago. Scientifically, you can't prove that event that way. But, as we said earlier in the lessons yesterday, you can know beyond a shadow of a doubt, reasonable doubt, that an event based on the evidence, witnesses, things like that. And so, based on things that happen around this miraculous, supernatural event, those things, that can indicate that did happen. We're looking at in these lessons, those events, as we're already talking about it, you'll hear me say it. You have to explain some of this away. I'm talking about things that happen. Factual, historical things that happen. You need an explanation. The universe is here. Explaining. Well, there's two theories on it. So the movement of Christianity is here, and it explained how, and we're going to talk about that part of it tonight. Now, I wasn't able to finish. I think it was lesson number 2, chapter 2. We were stopped at 95 because I was taking a little too much time there. So we're gonna. There's only a couple of slides there. I want to bring that up, and it's referring to these 5 facts that we talked about. You know, Jesus was a real person. Jesus was executed in a known tomb. The tomb was found empty. People saw Jesus alive. These are facts. These are not miracles. These are things that have been documented historically outside of the Bible as well as in the Bible. Now, the Bible gives us more about it for sure. But these are facts that scholars, historians, nobody can deny. I want to look though, we talked about that empty tomb where we remember skeptics came up about the empty tomb fact. One of the skeptics tries to deny it. Matthew gives us some very interesting details of events around that tomb. Let's read that. While they were going, behold, some of the guard went into the city and told the chief priest of all that had happened and taken place. What had happened? What's he talking about? Well, we know what happened. We know the story. How the guards out. That's a time when the angels rolled back the stone, and they come to, and they see the tomb is empty, and oh boy, we got to go tell the chief priest, and that's when there. And then in verse 11, while they were going, the women at the tomb, while they were going, behold, some of the guard went into the city and told the chief priest all that had happened. And when they had assembled with the elders and taken counsel, they gave a sufficient sum of the soldiers, and they said, tell people his disciples came and stole him away while he was asleep. And if this comes to the governor's ears, we'll satisfy him and keep you out of trouble. Of course, we know they're going to keep him out of trouble. Everything operates around bribery and money. And so they took the money and did as they were. And this story has been spread among the Jews to this very day. So the Jewish council perpetrated this hoax or this conspiracy theory that the disciples stole the body. And we're very because We trust the biblical record. It's there, we trust it. But what about he's back again, my non-believing friend. What about him? The non-believers, they don't accept the Bible. They don't trust it the way you and I do. So wouldn't it be nice some external evidence that elaborates what Matthew was writing about? Evidence that's outside of the gospel record. I think it would be very nice if there was such evidence to support what Matthew wrote, because then it would be collaborating evidence that the tomb was found empty. Not just from the biblical record, but because he doesn't believe the biblical record. So, does such evidence exist? Well, I wouldn't even have asked that if it doesn't, right? I'm sure you're familiar with Justin Martyr from the 2nd century. He was a very interesting man. He wrote a number of books. And in one of his books, he wrote a conversation that he was having with a Jewish rabbi by the name of Tro. And so the conversation was about Jesus Christ, obviously, and then the conversation got to the resurrection. And that's when Trypho, the Jewish rabbi, said, no, Justin, no, the body was stolen. We know that, the body was stolen. Heing it to Justin as if it's a matter of fact that the body was stolen. We're talking evidence from the second century about an empty tomb that is still believed by the Jews that it was empty. They still believe conspiracy theory. Remember, that's what we read that Matthew talked about. That's what you record. And so this evidence from the second affirms that that's what they were believing, and that's what the story was told. But here's Trypho didn't think that it didn't know where the tomb was. He didn't know where the tomb was. They didn't think that it was a misidentity of the tomb. The Jews never thought about or asked that kind of question. The question never such things because they all knew the tomb was empty. They knew where it was. It was empty. And everyone knew it. And so the point is, again, this is external evidence outside scriptures. We don't need it. I'm preaching to the choir here. But he needs it. Our non-friends, our atheists. Actually, I needed it when I was in mine. They need to know that this Bible record was here and it's not made up. Here's evidence of it, that the very story of a conspiracy of the body being stolen by a Jew who believed back in the 2nd century. And this is where we're going to stop for now. I was supposed to say that then. So that leads us now to 4 of proving the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so we're looking at evidence that proves that happened. Because you cannot explain it. The facts. You can't explain things that we know are facts without it. And since we're doing that, here's another fact that we can't ignore, that we're going to look at right now. That there was a major efforts throughout the Roman Empire to destroy the movement, this thing called Christianity efforts. We know that. But I don't know if we know at the level that this was going on. Now on a surface, say, well, what does that have to do with prove the resurrection? Bear with me. You're going to see this is very important. And you might have started picking some of it in the last 2 lessons. And so I want to dig in a little deeper. The effort that was brought to Christians, destroy you, remove from the face of the earth. I mean, complete. And it starts with asking the question, well, why? There's such an intense, vicious movement, or effort rather, to destroy this movement. It was a peaceful religion. Why are they wanting to get rid of it? The intensity, its reach, weren't there. But the evidence that tells us what happened is very, very interesting. As I mentioned, I think I better mentioned it once, that each one of you guys, you're an atheist. That's what we were called. I don't know if you know that. We were called atheists in the 1st century because you did not want to acknowledge the Roman gods. You did not want to give and recognize that they existed at all. So therefore, you're an atheist against God, their gods. And that was offensive, very offensive to the Roman citizens, to the friends, to your families, if they didn't become a Christian like you did. It's offensive to all of them. It was frightening to them, more than offensive. Imagine that your life, the way you live, is frightening to these Roman citizens. Why? Why was it so frightening? Well, for one thing, if something's going bad in your life, and it has bad times in your life, but if you're a citizen and something's going bad in your life, it's your God is angry with you. Why? Why are they so angry? I didn't do anything to anger my gods. So you start to think, well, I didn't do anything to anger my gods. It's the Christians who don't want to acknowledge my gods. My gods are so angry. Those evil creatures, remember that's what Tacitus, the historians call evil people. So whenever there's calamity, a fire, a flood, fault, you're the guilty ones, and you need to be punished. You need to be eliminated. You need to be out. Because remember what it was it? Tacitus said, because of the crime against humanity that you are guilty of, you need to be terminated. We can't grasp that. We live today. Yeah, there's persecution going on in the world, but you and I, we can't really comprehend how you were hated by your friends, by your neighbors, because you went against the gods of Rome. This is laying the foundation for what we're going to be talking about. At that time, there was something called the collegia. It was something, well, we would say trade guilds. It's like a guild. And if you had a particular skill that you were very skilled in, and you wanted a decent paying job, you'd have to be a member of that trade guild. Over each trade guild, pagan god as a protector over that guild. Did you know that? They had these guilds, all had their trade guilds. And it was the pagan gods were the protector. In order to be a member of that trade guild, then you had to honor God. And you had to also not only acknowledge him, but you had to pay the sacrifice, regular sacrifice. We regularly come here and offer sacrifices. We regularly offer sacrifices, take the Lord's Supper. That's what they did with their pagan gods. They're very religious people. If you wanted a good job and be a guild, then you had to be accommodating their pagan gods. But what if you didn't? What if you didn't honor their gods? Who's going to let you be in the trade? It can't be. Because in order to be a trade guild, you had to do those. It would be similar to, I say, not exactly, but let's just play this out. Let's say that we're all here, and a stranger comes walking in that door, and he gets to know us. He sees us. He sees what's going on. He says, I like you guys. You're pretty good. You're cool. I like the things you do. Can I be a part of you? No, I want to be a part of you. I want to do everything that you want to do. I want to be a part of this family. You guys, and you do. You really do have this close family net. You wants to be a part of the family. He says, Jesus Christ is not God. I know that. Therefore, you better not try to convince me he is. What are you going to do about that? What would you say to that guy? Hit the road. Get out of here. No way. That's what was going on back then. They would kick you out. They could have nothing to do with you. They had to reach you before their gods punished you for tolerating the Christians. You understand what's going on? This is real. This is the way life was. So if you're a Christian at that time, you would not be able to exercise your skill, your job. You couldn't get a good job. No, don't forget, as time went on, and this is a little bit extra, it was illegal to own property if you were a Christian. It was illegal to be a Christian up until 321-ish. Remember I said last time, risky business being a Christian of 300 years. So if you can't get a job, but it was even worse than that because betrayed my friendship by becoming a Christian. You betrayed the family. You're an enemy of the state. That's how they looked at enemy of the state. Therefore the whole society were to get rid of even though you're just a peaceful religion. Not in their eyes. If nothing else, survival. The dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, the mixed iron and clay doesn't mixture, that wouldn't. That's Rome. Welcome. Nobody. It wasn't iron and clay was not mixed because it was a mixture of diversity. I could get arrested sometimes saying that. It was a diverse culture. It was diverse in so many different ways. Different superstitions, different gods, different cultures. And all of this diversity led to disunity. Rome. And therefore, to overcome the issue of this disunity, they had a policy. They had to come up with a policy that would unify the people. And all the different nations of all the Roman empires, they needed a concept that would unify all of the different cultures, all of that diversity. So they came up with Caesar is Lord. It started Julius Caesar, were becoming gods. And you had to worship him. Now you come from all different nations. You can keep your gods, your nations, but we're all going to worship Caesar. Caesar is Lord. The Perpetua story we talked about, that's all she had to do was Caesar Lord. Worship primarily was a tool for unification. And the most part, for the most cultures, the different nations, and all the people, they came together and they were honored. They liked it. Okay, that's all right. We accepted this. But not you. You're the outliers. Problem. Because you would not into this state religion. How dare you? You wouldn't go along with it at all. And so as a result, to be a Christian, you already know that this puts you at a major risk, a great risk. The whole empire now is against you. You were criminals. You were making it cult for this union. Rome's not going to survive adversity. You can't have it that way. And that's why this new faith, this superstition that it was called, had to be eliminated from every vantage point. One had to go. Either Rome had to go, or Christianity had to go. Well, we know where that up, right? But the reason that Rome was primarily so successful in maintaining its existence was because of the pitiless killing and torture that would impose on people. Anybody who would dare to say anything against it, it would not be tolerated. They had military troops throughout the entire empire. And it wasn't just to protect the border. I call them merciless stormtroopers. That's not an official term, but I call them that. But that they were in this police state. And you go against it, they on you. And you, Christians, were the enemies. You had to be eliminated. As atheists, then, you were against Pax Romana. That's Latin for peace. You were totally against it. Say a word about it, but you were against it. And this peace existed 27 BC, and that was at the founder of the empire, Julius Caesar Augustus. That's when it started, all the way through to 180 AD, and that's at the death of Marcus Aurelius. And so all during this time period, they had this Roman peace, this Pax Romana. You see, Rome was not just one big powerful country. No, it became the unified world empire. It was like, you could say, actually, they didn't call it that, but we could recognize it. It was the United States world. a global empire. This is a picture of a map. The yellow represents where it was in 31 under Augustus. And see where the green expands out, where they started gradually conquering these territories. Augustus, again, he was very successful. The pink represent the client states that had to pay tribute to Rome, to Caesar. And so to give you an idea of the size, here's the familiar map of the United States. We know how big that is, and the map here is exact scale as that previous map. You'll notice when we go back to it that Rome was just a little bit smaller, but you can get an idea of size, a little bit small, but it also had in the middle of it, as we all know, the Mediterranean Sea. And so the point is that starting with Caesar, Augustus, the Rome and its citizens, they experience and they enjoy this internal peace. We're talking several generations without civil war. We can't even go years in our time frame without wars. Well, they went through several generations without even any concern and no civil wars at all. This was the internal Romana, a Pax Romana. And nobody, the citizens or the government, they didn't want to go back to the mess that was there. No, you cannot go back to that. So anything that might challenge that peace would not be taught by anyone, which brought about this widespread effort, massive effort to eliminate this new religion. Because the worldview, you were a major threat to their very existence. Again, I'm stressing that so that we can realize what they were going through, the way of life it was for both citizens and Christians. And here's what's so impressive. Christians never used any military force, weapons, no violence, nothing. Just gospel. In fact, they didn't even use anything themselves when they were attacked. Very peaceful, right? Whereas the authorities that came down, they would use torture. They threatened with death, and you would be killed and executed. But it wasn't just an authority that wanted to kill. Did you ever hear the term pogrom? Pogrom, it originated and it's used to describe individuals who would gather together, either acting as mobs, rioters, and their purpose was to massacre Jews. In fact, it was often referred to as Jewish pogroms, right? These are individuals who blame all the problems of society on those Jews. They're the problem. And local authorities, they approved pogroms. In fact, sometimes they would initiate them. It started in Russia, not Germany. It started in Russia in 1880. And of course, by the time it got to Germany, Nazis took over and it got worse over there. Well, in the first century, the very same thing. Pogroms. But it was Christian pogroms, as you define the words. Groups of people who would turn into a mob who needed a scapegoat. Something bad happened to them. Not just the government, your neighbor. You get someone's mad at you because you cut his part of the lawn without. This is worse. Neighbors, friends, they would form there to get rid of you, to kill you, to get you out of your area. And that was the easy solution when it went wrong. Blame the Christians. Because they hate our God. I can't stress that enough. They deny, you guys, you deny everything that makes, you deny everything that makes who we are, you Christians. We are a free people under one nation, under one God, well, multiple gods, our gods, and you are causing a problem. So what you have is people trying to kill or wanting to kill Christians. And the Roman authorities, they turned their head away, they own it, and then they even initiated this. And then if you recall, we talked about how in 64, Nero then this as an official effort to destroy. Book of Revelation comes out a lot in this thought. Because the Christians, the whole world against you. You can understand why I mentioned last time how Christianity should have failed. It should not have exceeded. But they ask the question, how could it have saved against everything that's going on? And the answer to that question really nails it. There's only one possible way. That's Christianity could survive under those conditions. Now that you know what you were living in, how could it survive? Only one answer, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It couldn't happen under any other conditions. And now we're going to prove that statement, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, from a humanistic point of view, a logical, humanistic vantage point. Let's look at it that way. Could Christianity have started under natural means? Okay, you get an idea now what's going on under those conditions. So, is there another possible explanation for Christianity to start? A natural one, a natural explanation, not a supernatural explanation for how it might start. In other words, resurrection. Historical events, evidence that started naturally, without using only natural means. Is there any hypotheses? Is there any theory, Mr. Non-believer? Is there any theory, or can you give me some idea of how this can come about without it, through natural means? Is any kind of a theory, an idea? Physical events, historical events happen. Could these have about the movement? Could these have the movement by themselves? That's why I was spending so much time on going through the detail of what life was like back then. It needs to be explained. Come up with a natural explanation that explains Christianity's existing. Here it is, 2,000 years later. Please, if they can come up with a natural explanation, that explanation will have a huge advantage, a major advantage. Why? Because then you don't need a supernatural explanation. You don't need something that's so hard to imagine happening. A natural one. If you can't come up with an easy explanation, then you have to accept complex explanation. If you can't give me an easy one, you have to then consider the complex one, because you have to explain Christianity. It's here. It needs to be explained. And so I said all of that was the introduction. To say this, that we're going to demonstrate that there are no simple explanations to the historical facts that we saw up there. Real facts that no one has. And we're going to clearly show, though, that it was the resurrection. That's the only explanation, the only possible event that could have caused Christianity. Not only to survive, but to rapidly grow. You remember how long it took from Judea to Rome? Less than 30 years. It just blew up. So if Jesus was raised from the dead, now we're going to look at it from a natural perspective. Sometimes I'm going to sound like an atheist, playing that guy's role. But if Jesus was not raised from the dead on that day, then what would that mean? What would that mean? Jesus died and he's still dead. If he didn't come out of the grave, he's still dead. But if that's the case, that means it was only his death caused this movement, that caused Christianity. His death, his burial, that's the thing that inspired and motivated people, the Jews and the Gentiles. And yeah, that's no, it's not. No, it's not possible. That could not have done it. If he wasn't raised, then it means just man, Jesus, him, the man himself, caused the movement, Christianity. I don't know if you realize it, there's a problem with that. It couldn't have been the man himself and just his death to start great movement. Because you see, everything then had to start at his crucifixion. That's when it had to start. This unprecedented movement had to start at that point of his death, as he hung on that cross and died and was buried. That's when it had to start. This movement that turned the world upside down, changed the course of history. And again, I'm going to stress it again. It had to start at his death. And you were saying, well, wait a minute, no, didn't it start before that? Well, let's think about that. Well, first of all, his death by itself couldn't start the movement. So maybe it was before he died that the movement started. Let's hold off on that, because the fact of the matter is that there's not a movement in the history of mankind that started at the death of the man originator, the person who started it. It always started during the philosophical movements. It's always started during the originator's lifetime, never at death. And that's why you might be thinking, well, yeah, it started before Jesus died. Can you have a movement where such a great, a profound earth movement started at a person's death, at the death? You can't. Throughout the history of mankind, no one can do that. I'm talking about where the man who was killed, and it was at his death that it started. Someone said, well, what about Muhammad? Doesn't he fit that category? No. Muhammad started while he was alive. It didn't start at ground zero when he died. Went from there up to the point where it's No, it didn't start at his death. He had military followers. He had followers who had military style aggression. They used weapons. Started 10 years before he died. His movement, his philosophy. He had thousands of dedicated followers with swords to force Islam upon the world. 10 years before he died. It didn't start at his death. Where on the other hand, with Jesus, it did start at his death. Everything was vice versa. The movement started when he died. I know what you're saying. You're waiting for me to get back. I'm going to do it right now. But he had such popularity, right? Before he died, he had so many following him. He had crowds wanting to make him king. Yeah, it started before he died. No, it didn't. That was temporary. All that was temporary. At the end of his life, before he died, he was left alone. He was rejected. Nobody was making him king anymore. There was no one wanting him. There was no crowds following him just prior to his death. I mean, even his chosen apostles left him. You mean the movement started before he died? No, it did not. Ran, hid themselves. He was left alone at his trial. Who was at his trial defending him? Where are those people? Give me 12 of them, my 12 closest. No. It didn't start while he was alive. This is a historical proven fact. He was rejected by everyone. He died alone. Isn't that in our songs? He died alone on that cross. And that's both a biblical record and it's an external secular historical records that indicated that everybody deserved him. And think of this. The disciples from a non-miraculous, atheist point of view, natural reason. Would the disciples have written what they did about themselves? They deserved. They wouldn't write down if it wasn't true, because that's an embarrassment to write that down. And you wouldn't let anybody else tell you about talk to like that you're a deserter. You wouldn't let them do it if it wasn't true. But these things are true. According to all historical data, there is absolutely no doubt he died alone. The movement, whatever was there, stopped. Remember what he said? We said that the other day. This most mischievous superstition, let me quote it, thus checked for the moment. It was checked. It was stopped. Right there in Judea. And then all of a sudden, see, the cross destroyed everything. It destroyed everybody's the hope the Messiah. His death stopped the movement. It didn't start the movement. So we're looking for a reason. How could it have done it? Because it wasn't just an ordinary, as we looked at last time. It was a most detrimental kind of ruining his reputation. And I'm not going to go through that whole part again. And remember, we're trying to look at a natural explanation for why you're sitting in this pew now. Why are you sitting here 2,000 years later, if the resurrection happened? What is causing you to be here at the resurrection? Because it didn't start while he was alive. The whole movement began after he was dead. And again, we're trying to look at a reason. This was an extremely unique event, not the resurrection. Remember, we're looking at it from a natural point of view. They don't believe it happened. The event is the mention, or the January was invented. How did it happen? Because this never happened before in the history of mankind. You know, we walk around every day thinking about everything else, but you really realize how unique you are, how unique this movement is. This is significant. Realize this, because about his death could not have started Christianity. It stopped. They all being his followers. That night in the garden, they stopped. They ran, they hid. Remember the effect it had in the very beginning with those two disciples that we briefly talked about, those two that walked on the road to Emmaus. What did they say? Oh, we hoped he was the one to save Israel. Lost that hope. And what about Thomas? Remember, is that where doubting Thomas comes from? I think it is, right? What about Thomas? Remember, he said, I'll never believe it. I will believe it to his brother and unless I can put my finger in that hole in his hands. Will not believe it. How did this man start with that attitude? You know, if this didn't come out of the grave, he would have never seen those hands, those nail-pierced hands, because Jesus was no longer the Messiah, their mind after his death. Remember Peter? We talked about, I won't go through all of that, how he was ready to die for Jesus, but when he saw what was happening to him, he lost all his understanding about it. So Peter didn't come up with this invented story after that. He cursed Jesus. He didn't come up. He couldn't maintain his courage. Who could? When you see that man on a tree, that means God cursed. He is not the Messiah. Remember what the historian Pincus Heed said? Let's see if I get that slide up here. He said that if these disciples started this movement, and that's what Mr. Non-Believer here says or thinks, with resurrection, then that would have been a greater miracle. Resurrection itself. Then consider this. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Paul said that Jesus' resurrection was preached from the beginning. And he orally was preaching the beginning. Those people then converted by what he preached. What was he preaching? It was the same thing. Gospel. And what he preached was the same thing. So these people were converted by the gospel, right? And they included the story about Jesus Christ, specifically about his death, his burial, and his resurrection, right? And Paul said that these things are according to the Scriptures. So the question is that, why did they convert over to Christianity? Naturally speaking, not a miraculous reason. Why naturally would they have been converted to what Paul said? Oh, I know what Paul was such a great speech. No, he admits that he wasn't. It wasn't his speech. It wasn't his method. He had no charisma. So it wasn't that motivated people. Oh, then, again, we're looking for a way to explain it. So what natural means could have motivated him? Oh, wait a minute, another idea. Maybe it was the idea of resurrection. Yeah, they really liked the concept. I'm talking about people in that first century. They liked the idea of resurrection, so they fell for it. We already looked at the conditions of that time frame. They did not like the idea. They just wanted to believe it because it was something attractive to them, and they accepted it uncritically. No, that's not that. That is a natural explanation, but it doesn't work. It doesn't hold water. Death, that was the furthest line. That's impossible. Remember that? No one can suggest that they like the. Have you ever? I don't know if you experienced, Sean. I don't know if you did. I have. I've actually had people say, they just were the idea that there's going to be a life because life was so bad. Life was bad, but they didn't like the idea of resurrection. It was from their mind. Wasn't impossible. The whole world thought it was foolish. The resurrection, the cross. The Jews said, no, it's a stumbling block to the Jews. We can't accept it at all. And so the concept, idea of resurrection did not the movement, just the idea of it. But the idea, the foreign idea of resurrection, if I can still call it foreign, it was accepted. They did accept it. But they didn't do it because they were willing to accept it. They were ready to accept it. They had to accept it because of the facts, because of the evidence that was there in front of their eyes. You know, Paul had the power of miracles. The apostles had miracles, and other Christians had miracles. But Jesus had miracles for 3.5. We're doing 3.5 years, and they left them even after knowing that. So the miracles in themselves is not really what started the mission. Yeah, it showed that the man presenting the information was from God, but it was the resurrection that caused the faith and the hope. That is, as Peter said. They just didn't buy into the concept without any critical thinking. The bottom line is this. No one get the idea or the thought of a resurrection would motivate anybody under those conditions. I had some critics say that, well, I think you've heard this one. Christianity was forced. That's why. It was forced on people, control people. Now I've heard that. I'm sure you have too. Where's the evidence? There is no evidence that anybody forced this movement on anybody else, 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th century, old and those tough. No, there is no evidence that anyone forced. So if anyone suggests that that's what happened, now turn to the Crusades later on in this, 6th. Well, that's not Christianity, we know that. But just ask people, show me the where someone forced Christianity on anybody. That's what you're going to hear, crickets. Because there ain't none. There's no evidence at all. They can't produce it, but you now can produce evidence. And I know you're not expecting all these things, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th chapters tomorrow and the next chapter. You're not going to remember them, so you're going to have to just finger on a device and click it, and you can get a lesson easily and present it and show it to people, because now you have that Rome was forcing Christians to reject Jesus Christ. That's historical. Nobody can do that. And so our next one, we'll look at more of the evidence, real hard evidence that's going to explain phenomena that we haven't even touched on. A lot of interesting evidence. I hope as excited about it as I am, you can tell I'm excited about it. I love this stuff because I was confronted 11 years ago, maybe, that I'm believing fairy tale. This book's a fairy tale. And I couldn't answer. I could not give the reason for what was in me. I was failing that command. I was 30 a movement into being, and I couldn't answer that question from a family member. And me, is Is there evidence? If I'm repeating myself, forgive me. If Jesus Christ really was, he said he was, and he really is from the dead, big headline news, everybody writing about it. I couldn't come up with anything outside the Bible. That was the, I couldn't get past that until I started doing my research. And there is a lot of headline news written in the first second century about Christ and the. And wait till you hear what happened with Paul. Yeah, the apostle. Happened with Paul. But wait till you hear about the surrounding evidence with Paul. Next week, we're going to do this tomorrow night or next week. We're going to look at a logical argument. Again, another argument, different than what we've been talking about tonight, that they can't overcome. And we're going to look at some interesting information about the Apostle Paul. Okay, I got to catch up to my slides here. Yeah, we're going to see things that we're going to notice phenomena that just cannot be explained. Just like itself, it cannot be explained. Then you're left with the little difficult explanation if you can't come up with a simple one. And I think that's my slide. It's hard for me to keep track where I'm at with all of this. I usually do these over a period of 1 week. Not 3 one day and then 1 each day after that. So I got to get my brain in order where I'm standing. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself. But I really enjoyed presenting these to you. But you know, consequences of the resurrection, what it really is. The consequences is that we have to answer that ourselves. What are we going to do with this evidence? We just can't sit down and take it and say, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that. We have to do something with it. One of the things is talk to our friends, our family about it. But I think I can't say much more, just as important. Me. What am I going to do? Am I going to accept it? A Christian, am I going to consider it and realize, you know, I can't deny the facts. This is. And I have to realize that Jesus was raised from the dead. And if I accept him, if I don't believe his words where he says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. And he said, Mark 16, those believe, and if you're baptized, you'll be saved. The man who reversed death has given me a way to reverse death for me. I just have to listen to what he said and obey. It's up to you. I encourage you to do that. Okay, you got it?